Hi, 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 everybody. You can see I'm a little kid in a candy shop because but you'll know why. You'll know why. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Better Chronicles from Kasi to the world. My name is Balesa and I am an international teacher and amongst other things, but the most important thing at the moment is just the international teaching part. I am not with my better, sometimes worse half. But don't worry, I'm not alone. I'm with the Queen herself, guys. You know what? I feel like Black Excellence is just doing the most these days, especially around me. And you're gonna be seeing so much of that. Just stay tuned to the oldies. Welcome back. Thank you so much. You're the reason we always do this. To the new guys, Better Chronicles is where it's at, man. If you want your ticket to what? The world through teaching. This is the place to be. And this is exactly what we're talking about today. Teaching my ticket to the world, guys. We have an amazing queen. I just need her to introduce herself, but just know that she is an amazing queen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Janet, and I have a YouTube channel called Diaspora Doodles, which started because of my passion to impact knowledge on people who look like me to come into teaching. I am currently a primary school teacher. I trained as a primary school teacher, but I've taught from 0 to 14. I have traveled the world with my teaching because I'm an international school teacher. I've been to 9 countries teaching across 6 continents, but I've traveled to 150 countries because of all this traveling. I have taken my craft around the world and helped children whose first language is not English because I've taught in predominantly non English speaking countries. And I bring all
Mm.
that wealth of experience and knowledge to this channel today. So it's nice to be here. Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you so much. Thank you, guys. Did you hear that? 100 and something countries, guys. For me, for the young me who is in the locations somewhere in Africa right now, I'm just sitting here thinking it's possible.
It is.
And that is the whole point. Like, if there's anything you're going to take out of this, over and above the pen and paper and all the knowledge, the fact that it's possible, everybody, because I cannot, like, when I was growing up, it was very hard for me to imagine myself outside of South Africa, right? And the fact that somebody like you, somebody like me, has been doing it for all these years is just so inspirational. And I completely understand the channel and the fact that you've been teaching throughout, but why teaching and why travel?
Well, my first passion is travel. I know when I say this, people go, What? But yes, my
Mhm.
first passion is travel. I love to travel. I've been traveling inside my country since I was
Yeah.
I was a little baby. My
Mm,
parents moved from
mm,
one end of the country to the other because they're civil servants. So they got promoted
maybe
and
on.
moved a
Yes.
lot. So my travel first of all started inside my country. I speak
Mm,
the three major Nigerian languages because I'm from Nigeria because of
yes.
all that traveling. And what better way to do than to take it outside of the country? I
Mm,
found teaching helped my love for travel even more because the minute I knew
mm.
about international school teaching and teaching abroad, my passion was ignited and multiplied by 1,000-fold, and I have not looked back since then.
Sense. And I mean, I think you remind me of everything I like. That one particular thing I always say in an interview when most of my panel, because they always get to this idea of why would you leave the legal fraternity and teach? You know what I mean? And for me, it's always been this idea that teaching is extremely a calling. Teaching is a calling, and it locates you at the most unsuspicious of times. You know what I mean? We'll get to when and how and why I started teaching, but for me, when I hear you say that, it automatically takes me back to aligning your passion and your purpose, and you
Exactly.
do it so beautifully. You know what I mean? Because your passion is traveling and your purpose is teaching, and the fact that that then becomes your ticket to seeing this beautiful world of ours is absolutely great. I mean, when you speak about ensuring that people like us become much more visible, right? You take me to this idea of representation. What
Yes.
do you think is the reason? Why do you think representation matter or should matter in the diaspora, especially in this time that we're living in?
First of all, when children see themselves in their
Mm,
teachers, I find that it's easier for them to become like their teachers. So
yeah.
I always say when they see it, they can be it. Now,
Yes. Yes.
mobility, people move around the world now. Mobility is easier. So there are lots of people
Yes.
moving from one country to the other. They put their children in
Exactly.
schools across the world. So it just makes
Mm,
sense for those children to see
mm,
people who look like them wherever they find themselves. It's a United Nations right that children should be educated, and I feel it's a right for me to see myself represented in whoever's teaching me. It makes more
mm,
sense. The person understands me better. The other
mm,
person understands what my peculiar problems are. I
mm,
mean, let's take ourselves back to a few years ago. The first time Black Panther came out, Black people or people who look like us finally found ourselves in a superhero. It's
the
not like
superheroes.
it's not like we didn't like all the other superheroes, because when we say things like this,
Exactly.
some people think that it's because we didn't acknowledge all the superheroes. No. I remember tying scarves on my head to have blonde hair like Wonder Woman. But
Exactly.
with the Black Panther, it
Mm.
resonated a lot deeper inside
Deeply,
of me.
deeply.
And so I wrote my thesis on how children should see themselves in every classroom that they enter. Even if
Mm,
it's not in a teacher, it should be in the books that are presented to the children.
yes.
It should
Yes.
be variety of subjects that they are given. And because
Mm,
mobility is easier now, it should be easier for children to see themselves in their teachers, even if
mm,
in all of their 12 years of teaching, of learning
mm,
in the school,
mm.
there should be at least two or three times where they will encounter teachers who look like
That
them
look like
in the classroom.
them.
And what is an international school if it doesn't have the teachers representing the student body
Everybody. Yes.
on the roll? So that has been my
Everybody.
mantra since I opened my eyes and realized
Mm,
I am bringing representation to the schools. So there should be other people like me around the
mm.
world bringing the same representation.
And I think, in one of the other videos, I was speaking to these other two queens as well, and we were speaking around this one incident I had when I was an intern and I had the opportunity to travel. So I was in Durban and I traveled somewhere else, so from one city to another in South Africa. And when I got to that place, I met up with this young boy or young man at the time, and he was studying to be a lawyer. And we started having like a very beautiful conversation, only for both of us to realize that he used to attend my rival school, um, and I'm in his rival school, and then we
Yes.
bonded with that. But one of the conversations led to me and him having this conversation around representation and why it matters on the surface, right? The fact that at the end of the day, if these black boys, specifically because of that particular conversation, and it touched me because I have a son, and he says to me, one of the biggest struggles I found when I got to university, because it was an all boys school, was I did not know how to interact with people like me.
Yes.
Janet, when he said that, I couldn't believe it, I
Mm.
couldn't believe it. And he said it's hard for people like me to be around strong black women, because I've never been, the only strong black woman is my mother, and that context is quite different, and
Yes.
and when I got to varsity, I couldn't relate, I couldn't converse, I couldn't even approach people that look like me. And it starts becoming
Yes.
this idea that I don't want to, but nobody understands that I don't know how to,
Yeah.
right? And that's where it takes me back to what you're saying, this idea of representation. Because even when I got back to school, I started being very conscious about the fact
Yes.
that there are black females, there are black males, there are black, trans people. There's blackness and greatness that go
Yes.
together, and
Yeah.
you need to be fine with that. You need to be fine with the fact that I am a black woman who's educated, who's here because she deserves to be, who knows what she's doing, and she
Yeah.
loves what she's doing, right? So that when you go out there and you engage with people that look like me, that look like you're not
Yes.
startled and you're not starstruck. And from there on, that's also what ignited me to say people need to like leave. We need to
Yes.
broaden our horizons, because travel
Yes.
is our greatest educator.
Yes.
And as
Yes.
an educator, being a lifelong learner, there's so much you can learn in your country. There's
Of
so much
course.
you can learn in your country. And
Oh,
for people like us that then say, let me leave and go bag and bag and bag this information and then come back and try work it within our systems because there's so much missing here, it's still
yes.
important for you to go out there and do that. And I
Yes.
mean, one of the other things you speak so greatly about that I think a lot of young incoming teachers need to take cognizance of is this idea of branding. Why
Yes.
do you think it's so, so important as an international teacher or an aspirant international teacher? Because this is who we're talking to right now. Why do you
Yes.
think branding is important, and what does branding look like?
Well, I'll start with my brand. I'm
Mm,
a teacher who looks like me,
mm.
existing in a place where people like me do not, they're not, when there's not many of us out there.
You're an,
So
a
that's a
minority. Mm,
So that's a brand. I have to
mm,
make sure that I represent properly, because it's not just about bringing representation to the people who look like me so that they can
mm,
see me and be it. It's also
mm.
about deconstructing
Yes,
stereotypes. I remember
yes.
the first time I walked into a classroom. Uh, I won't name the continent now because it just sounds mundane. Um, and the first thing was the parents didn't think I needed to be in that classroom. They
Yes.
said they had paid for a teacher who didn't look like me,
Mm,
and so they didn't understand why the school had brought me in.
mm.
And there was a revolt, and yeah, it was horrible.
Yes.
The school backed me up because the school was pushing for diversity. So they backed
Yes.
me up, and that was the reason why I stayed. And that was the beginning of my journey of knowing that I'm a brand. I'm a
Mm,
brand to people who have never encountered someone like me in those
mm.
spaces. So I have to represent my brand properly. I have to make sure that if my wig's not sitting properly on my head, I have to adjust it properly, put my
Yes.
crown on properly, and
Mm.
represent like an ambassador would. Because not only am I bringing strength and mentorship to people who look like me, I'm
Yes.
also
Mm.
showing people who don't look like me why I should be here, giving them
Mm.
a different perspective, giving them a different view from what they know, that people like me exist and we're not harmful. We
Yes.
deserve to be here.
Mm.
We deserve to be at the table, and they need to learn a few things from me, just
From
like I'm
us.
learning from them. And
Mm.
together, we can make the world a better place when people can just learn to, just
Live
cohabit.
together. Yes. Be
Yes,
together, live together. And I
be
think you
together.
you 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 taking me to this like important idea of where does one strike a balance? Because I think for me, when I think about especially the incoming generation, when I think about this idea of adapting while trying to keep who I am,
Yes.
sometimes these two things,
Right.
they hit, they butt heads. And
Yes.
I'm like, how would you advise someone like me who says, I want to be adaptable and I want to learn as much as I can, but I'm so scared to then losing myself in the process, where I can find this idea of give and take, where I'm learning, but I'm
Yes.
also really grounded in who I am as
As a
Balesa.
person. Well, I I went in with an open mind because
Mm, mm,
the most constant thing, I'm a mathematician, so the most constant thing in life is change. It's constant,
yes.
but it's change. And one of the things we need to have to embrace change is an open mind. You
Yeah.
will gain new perspectives as well, even as you're
Mm,
bringing your own perspectives to the
sure,
table. And
sure.
the main thing is to maintain that moral code that makes you you.
You,
Do
yeah,
not people can't treat you bad if you do not give them the chance to treat
to
you
do
different.
so.
And
Yeah.
so in you becoming the new version of you from all the experiences that you come across,
Mm,
you have to retain that moral code. Do not lose your essence, do not lose
mm,
who you are. Always think, what I'm doing now or what I'm learning now, does it
mm.
make me different? Am I really happy with the change that's happening with me?
That's
Even though
coming.
change is inevitable, I'm going to
Mm,
change because I'll be learning new things, adapting to new cultures. I need to retain my essence. I need to
mm,
remember my father told me I need to remember the daughter of who I am. I should not compromise on my morals. I should not
mm.
compromise on the fact that do no harm should be my
Yeah.
watchword. I should not compromise on all the basic things that make me me. I can change
Mm,
my accent so that because I'm picking accents from all around the world, but I should
yes.
not forget where I'm from,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that
And I
will
mean,
keep that essence.
you grounded, that would keep you
Yes.
grounded. And of course, this idea of accent, I mean, in South Korea, some schools more than others are so steadfast on we want you to sound like a certain country that we also can't mention, or we want you to sound like a. Do you think that matters? Because I mean, there's such a like a heated debate around certain people saying, but me knowing how to speak English and me speaking English in an accent have got nothing to do with each other, you know? And then there are other people saying, but if a parent who's going to be paying your salary says, I want you to sound this way so that I can believe you know what you're doing, then sounding the way I want you to sound shouldn't be a bother, you know? How does one then also, because that also speaks back to the idea of professionalism, like how do you mitigate around things that you might sometimes feel like this is a ridiculous ask that might not take so much away from me professionally, but it might take away something from my inherent person if I were to do it? Because I mean, when you interview me, you can hear the way I speak. Why
Yes.
do I then get to your school after signing the contract, after doing the whole process, because you know the process does not take a day? Why do
Yeah.
I then get you a school and you then tell me, well, Balisa, try wearing more wigs or more makeup or your accent just be a bit more, you know? How do I mitigate against those conversations?
Mm, First of all, we have to remember we are pioneers. There's not many
Mm,
people who have come into this field who look like
yes,
us.
yes.
So we will encounter problems like that.
Mm, yeah.
My way of trying to circumvent this problem is to make sure I speak clearly. I'm not going to
Mm,
speak like, if I'm not from the US, for instance, I'm not going to
yes.
speak to someone from the US. And many of those people might not even know that in the US, there's different accents.
Yes.
Even in the UK, the birthplace of English, there's so many different accents, and you can go from one town to two towns down the road, and the accent has changed.
It's not the
And
same.
exactly, many of these people also need educating, and it is
Mm,
people like you and I who will bring that education to them.
mm,
It just means that we will work harder, but I'm hoping that our work will then let others like us who come
mm,
after us do less work. We will be
yeah.
working really hard. We will be, learning and changing perceptions as we go on. And those
Yes.
perceptions are centuries old because of the stereotypes that has been
Yeah.
embedded into
And the
people
biasness.
and the bias. But
Mm,
we'll just continue educating them. I remember in my classroom, I used to have to tell people, oh, you want me to speak like someone from the UK? Oh, really? Do you know how someone from the UK speaks? because I could speak in a Geordie accent and I could speak in a Mancunian accent, or I
Mm.
could speak in a Devon accent or a Cambridgeshire accent. Choose which
Yes,
one you would like me, because I'm bringing English to the table, and English
exactly.
is, yeah, it has gone around the world. It has absorbed cultures. I mean, we
Mm.
didn't ask for English to come to us, but English came to
Yes.
us and we absorbed it. And
Mm.
even the
Mm.
people who brought English to us have different accents as well, and they cope. One of the schools where I've worked, I remember the principal said to the parents who revolted for having a teacher who looks like me in the classroom, that
Yeah.
the head of school said, do you want your children to have British education? And the parents said, yes, that's what we're paying for. That's the product we're paying for. And she said
Mm.
to them, well, you need to visit the United Kingdom because it's a very
Yeah.
cosmopolitan country. It's a very cosmopolitan society. And you could walk 3 miles down the road and the accent has changed. This is the most qualified person that we have on the
Mm.
team. And we're going with qualification because that's what's
Yeah.
going to ensure quality in our education. They
Mm.
were still difficult, but I then had to prove why the head of school was backing me up. It was tough, but we
Mm.
all got there in
Mm.
the end. And now there
Yes.
are more teachers who have gone to that school who look like me. And I'm very
And
proud
the road is a
because,
bit better.
yes,
Yeah. No, I completely understand. That makes so much sense. And I was so heartbroken when I spoke to a lady friend of mine earlier, and she's like, because I was sharing the conversation we once had, and I told her we're going to speak today, and I
yes,
told her that there's so many, like, we're needing more teachers, right? And I remember you spoke about the stats, and I said there's a lot of international teachers that are needed, like teachers are leaving, so we need more people to teach.
yes.
And she's like, but Palesa, for a girl in the location in South Africa, teaching internationally is a far-fetched dream because of the expenses, right? They think it's expensive. And I'm like, you literally like made me so happy because it's one of the questions I wanted to just bring out there, right? Does it cost a lot to move as an international teacher? Can I move without any cent to my name?
The first time I moved, no, not the first time. The first time I moved out of the country, I moved as a wife of someone who could foot the bills. The
Mm.
second time I moved from that country to another country, I didn't have, I think I had the equivalent of £200 to my name at the time. So it wasn't enough to do anything. The school
Yeah.
foots the whole, they foot the bill. They provided return flights from the point of my interview to the school and back at the end of my contract. They provided accommodation. They provided a relocation allowance because we had to pay for our property to be moved
Yes, yes.
to that country. So we are given an accommodation allowance. So in the end, I ended up not spending anything apart from maybe taxi fare to the airport to get on the plane that has already been paid for by the
Oh,
school. I
you.
also, just little things like that. And even
Mm.
the accreditation, the attestation of my qualifications
Yes.
were done by the school. I didn't have to do anything.
And I mean that is making like such a breathe, it's making it so easy, like it's making me breathe, because that's what a lot of people are complaining about, or they don't know, and this is why these channels exist. Like, it does not cost you anything outside of the qualification you already have, right? and
Yes.
and I'd like to speak about this idea of inferiority complexes. How would you advise somebody who looks like us to maneuver that? Because I don't want to lie, it was not a lot in teaching, but when I started in corporate, because I went to a predominantly black institution, so when I started as a candidate attorney, it was a whole culture shock for me, right? And for the longest of time through my articles, I kept on being eaten up piece by piece by inferiority complexes, where questions such as, Are you sure you're here? Are you sure you know what you're doing? Are you sure you're going to be fine? Are you sure they know what you're doing? Are you sure they're not regretting, employing you? And when I got into teaching, because I also got into teaching as an intern, I
Yes.
I, I had such a heartbreaking like moment where I saw other people going through what I went through in the law, right? And then I then matched the two, that it's not about the career, it's not about the person, but it's about like this corporate space and how we see it and how we were taught to see it and how we look at ourselves and how these two things sometimes don't meet up, how would
Yes.
you advise the incoming teachers to deal with this, because I know it's a whole problem.
It is. I like to call it the imposter syndrome, where you
Mm,
have self-doubts and you keep telling yourself that you do not belong there because let's
yeah,
face it, we're deconstructing pillars that have been set even before our time.
true.
So we are the ones doing all the work so that the
Yeah,
people who are coming, after us
behind
can
us, yeah.
enjoy this space. One of the
Mm,
ways I do that is to make sure that I do not take things personally. There are times when I would speak and some people will go, I don't understand you. Your accent is so thick. I'm like, really? Well, how do you want me to speak it? Because I could speak a Geordie accent, going back to the Geordie accent. I could speak in a
yes.
Geordie accent, and you're from that country. You can understand someone with a Geordie accent. So if you
Mm,
just calmly listen to me,
mm,
you will understand what I'm doing. I, on the other hand, will try my best to speak clearly
mm,
so that we can both come to that space where
yes.
we can exist amicably without winding each other up, that sort of
Yeah.
thing. It's the
Mm,
imposter syndrome because then
yeah.
after people start to, every time people don't hear me, probably because I'm not speaking loudly enough, because I'm feeling very small.
Inferior,
They,
yes.
I
Yes.
think it's because of my accent. It's not, sometimes it's not because of my accent. I just need
Mm,
to speak up,
to project, yeah.
but it comes with confidence. And the only way
Mm,
to build this confidence is do not shy away from it. It's like me learning all the languages that I've learned. When I started learning Spanish, I would not speak in public places. But then
mm,
I had to intentionally go out to the market and I would ask them, please don't speak to me in English. They know I speak in English. Or they say, the English teacher, no, please don't speak to me in English. I'm trying to learn my Spanish.
learn.
I became vulnerable to them so they could
Mm,
see I'm trying my best. You try your best to meet me at my point of view. But
halfway.
it comes with an inner strength to make myself vulnerable enough, not too vulnerable
Mm,
so that people don't disregard me, but vulnerable enough so that I'm open to picking up the culture,
mm,
the language, the nuances, so that then my confidence grows in that culture.
mm.
And with that growth, I stop my imposter syndrome starts to diminish. The
The
more I learn
diminish.
about the culture, the more I
Mm,
learn about the people, the more I learn about the language, then the less my imposter syndrome is apparent.
mm.
Another way is CPDs. For example, as teachers, I'm co- I, you could be coming from a curriculum that's totally different from yours.
Yes,
Shying
yes.
away and burying those feelings will only make it worse.
Mm,
Be open to the fact that you don't know
yeah.
and go online, get CPDs. With more CPDs, you become more proficient in the classroom, and the more
Mm,
proficient you are, the more people will start to see you as a force in the classroom.
mm,
Concurrently, you're learning the language, you're learning the nuances, you're learning the culture. After a
yes.
while, you feel like a native yourself, and that imposter syndrome starts to diminish.
Just goes away.
Unless you're like me and then you move to another country and start the whole
And then
cycle
you start
again.
all over again. Gosh, girl, you've got yeah, you've got so much strength. So, I mean, with regards to CPDs, and that's another conversations I've been having lately. On the one end, CPDs teach you what you don't know, but I think for me, they also assist with the confidence in the things that you do know, right? Because I mean,
Yes.
you have been you've been mentoring this girl too, and you've been talking to me about the importance of CPDs. But and I've been speaking to Caesar about it, that as soon as I sit there and I start going through the CPD, and I'm like, wait, but I know this, and this is not how we say it or do things in our, like, our country. But once I pass this one CPD, and I'm like, okay, I know that I know this, but now that the CPD is also going to tell my future employer that I know it, I'm also
Yes.
working a bit higher, you know what I mean? So it's
Yes.
also from that level that for most of our in South Africa, most of the schools, when we do professional developments, there aren't necessarily certificates that speak back to the things that you do, right? Obviously, if you're in international school, that's a whole new dynamic. But now we're talking about the girl that's been teaching for 4 years in a public school. She goes through
Yes.
these professional development things every month. But if you were to ask, show me what you've been learning about diversity or classroom management or curriculum planning and development, nothing. But now, when I open her CV and then I see all of these things from the CPD perspective in the CV, then I'm like, this is the girl that I want, because in
Yes.
the interview, you're not going to be telling your panel everything that you know without them asking you. And if there
Yes.
aren't any CPDs in your CV, they're not going to ask you about them. Therefore, you walk away not having told them, and they stay not knowing, like, this girl knows what she's talking about. So
Yeah.
even from that element, for me, I feel like they really help, because I promise
Yes.
you, most of these things are like me polishing my skin. I'm like, no, man, I've got this. Okay, this
Yes.
is what this is called. I didn't know this is what this was called. This different type of seating style. I just thought it's a seating style. You put this
Yes.
together, but it's called semicircle, and this is why semicircle is important. We've
Yes.
got the straight chairs situation, and this is why this is
Yes.
important. And I think
Yes.
it's been absolutely amazing.
Not
Now we're
only,
coming to
not only, oh, sorry.
no, 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 no problem.
Not only does it not only does it help you conquer your imposter syndrome, it also gives you reinforcement for what you know. Like, I know that. It might be called something else, but I know that. And
Yes.
if I know the system, it's just the name I need to learn and then I can explain it. This is why I say just keep doing the CPDs, keep
Hmm.
understanding that, look, what we bring, we know what we bring to the table is enough. It's just
Yes,
that it's being called something else in the other culture.
something
And
else.
if we
Yes.
don't know what it's being called in that culture, then we feel
Mm.
like we don't know enough because those people don't know what I know. I
Yes.
don't know what they know. But if I
Mm.
try to learn what they know, then I know
Mm.
two things. So who's more
Who's
efficient?
who's more efficient? Who's more efficient? And in reality, when we look at life generally, we also look at this idea of trade-offs, You've been in this process for the past 20 years, and you've been everywhere. But what could be like that one thing that you still feel to date was your biggest trade-off, and was it worth it?
Professionally, I've enjoyed every single country, every single continent. I
Mm.
look back on each country and I feel like, oh, I've grown, and I can pinpoint in my career when I
Yes,
took another leap in my
yes,
career, like, oh,
yes.
I became a different person after this country because not only have I picked things from maybe three previous countries, I now added a
Mhm.
fourth. So I know I'm more proficient and more
Yes.
comfortable and confident in my professional life. I think for me, it's more in my personal life. The fact that
Hmm.
I know people all over the world because of all the different countries that I've lived in. But sometimes, especially when I'm in a new country, I've got lots of friends around the world. But when I need that support, in Norway we call it
One oh,
kusling. When I need the kusling, that when you cozy up with your friends, your inner circle, it's probably a different time, a time
yes.
zone. They're probably sleeping and I'm somewhere else. Or,
Mm.
you know, before I warm up to people in the new country, there's that period in time when I feel like, oh, I could do it.
I'm
So
alone.
I'm alone. I've got
Mm.
I know people, but I haven't
But
got
I'm
the support
lonely.
that I
Mm.
need right now. It's almost like
Mm.
being in the midst of people, and then you're lonely.
Yeah.
That would be for me the downside. And not taking enough
Mm.
pictures. That's the second thing. I don't think I've taken enough pictures of all the different places where I've
You
lived.
know, is there such a thing as taking enough pictures?
Oh no, my goodness. I look back on some things now and I'm like, oh, I should
I
have been
should
walking
have
around
captured
with my
that.
camera.
I
I
should have
captured it in
captured
my head.
that.
I captured it
Hmm.
in my head, but now I want to share it, especially with my mentoring group, with my YouTube family.
Yeah.
I want to share those times. But I'm like, oh, I was stood there gawking at the event, but I didn't take pictures. I feel like I could have taken
Anything.
more pictures. Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh. And with all the continents having visited, what has been the one constant, especially from an education perspective for you?
People are the same. We
Mm.
look different, we speak different, but we're the same. We have
Mm.
hopes, we have aspirations, we have a yearning to become the
Mm.
better versions of
The
ourselves.
best version of ourselves.
Yes, it could be projected in different ways,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
inside of us we want to become the better versions of ourselves. People
Yeah.
who put their children in school, who want them to become English speakers, even though they're not English
They
speakers,
are English speakers.
those are people who have aspirations for their children. People who are already English speakers, but they prefer for their children to go to international school because they want them to have a global perspective.
Yeah.
Those are aspirations as well. And
Yeah.
yeah, so people are the same. We just look different. And the more we start to think and see that we're the same, the easier life would be for people like you and
For
I who
us.
travel around. Yeah.
For us. And with regards, I mean, you've been talking to us around, well, in your YouTube channel and all your social media handles, this idea of now it's hiring season. And I mean, we've been speaking about the different types of ways you can get hired. Guys, please go to Janet's YouTube channel. You're gonna get all of those things. We're not gonna be jotting down. The agencies are there, why agencies are a good thing and a bad thing, where you can get governmental schools if you're looking at places such as the UK. Guys, it's a mouthful. Like I promise you, when I got hold of your channel after seeing you at Dr. Waka Waka's channel, I literally binged it. And Tom was just like, the one thing about you, babe, is that when you get into things, you get into them like you don't understand.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
I obsess over knowledge. And when I came across your channel, it's like this one video takes me to the next video. You know when you watch that beautiful series and you're just like, I
Yes.
want to see where the end is. But the beautiful thing about the videos you share is there's no end. It's just one
Oh,
thing is
thank you.
bringing you to something else. And I'm just like, guys,
Thank
please
you.
go there. But the one thing I'm super fascinated about, especially from like somebody who's still maybe shy and somebody who's not really used to it, how could you advise a person to get into a job fair? For some of us, job fairs are a nightmare because we don't necessarily think we have the tools and the techniques and the confidence to bring out our
Yes.
best version because it's 10 interviews at the same time. It's 10
Yes.
different schools. It's 10 different continents. Like, what
Yes.
do I say to the head teacher in Asia that I shouldn't say to the head teacher in Saudi Arabia? You know what I mean? Like, how can one mitigate either in person or virtual job fairs? Because I think those are also one of the ways that a person can infiltrate the international teaching space.
Yes. 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 I mean, it still comes back to what we've said a few points.
Yeah.
Staying true to yourself,
Mm.
understanding your values, and understanding you can't be a good fit for every school.
Yes.
You
Yes.
cannot. If you're a good fit for every school, then it means you're like water. That you don't
Mm.
stand for one thing, you fall for
There's
everything.
no authenticity. Yes.
Exactly. So
Mm.
stay true to yourself, understand your moral code, your moral values, what you cannot do, what you will do, and then
Mm.
do a lot of CPDs so that when
Mm.
it's like going on a speed date.
Mm. Mm.
Virtual fairs are like speed dating. You can't be a good fit for every person who sits opposite of you,
Mm.
on the opposite side from you. You you have to resonate with a certain type of person so that you can have a
Mm,
good relationship. It's the same
mm,
thing with a school. For instance, I went on a job fair once, and yes, I understand what you mean by having anxiety when you go to job fairs. It's like, oh my
mm.
goodness, because
It's a lot.
as soon as one principal is off, another one's coming on, and you don't even have time to gather your thoughts or your
And
head.
breathe.
But safeguarding is the same across the world,
Mm,
regardless of where even if it's Saudi Arabia, Russia, wherever.
mm,
Safeguarding is the same. There are some things that stay the same, just like safeguarding. Understanding that and keeping that close to yourself
mm,
when you
mm.
talk to these schools will help you filter out the ones that will not really go with you,
Yeah,
and the ones that you can actually work. I mean, why would you want to work at a school that doesn't go with your
appreciate you.
core values,
Yeah,
your own
yeah.
core values? If your core
Mm,
values is that if your core value is that children should not face corporal punishment, let me use that
mm,
as an example, and a school comes to you and tells you, oh no, the boys have to endure corporal punishment at a specific time of the day, you're not going to say yes.
yeah.
You're
Because
going to
that's not
say,
your core value.
exactly. You're going to
Mm.
say, I don't think so, but you're not going to say it that way. You're going to be very diplomatic, but in your being
Exactly.
diplomatic, you're going to let your personality shine through
Come out,
so
come
that they
out.
know that's not you and that's not what you
Mm,
stand for. And that school head will go because you don't want to work there and be conflicted all the time.
mm. And this has been absolutely amazing. I think two more questions for me that
Yes.
I like finally find like a way to just close this beautiful conversation. One of them is, as an amazing and great teacher yourself, I can just imagine how much knowledge and how many amazing people you've necessarily like encountered, you know. Can you name? I know this is so hectic because you probably have a million already, but who has been your greatest teacher and why?
Whew. Only one person comes to mind. I mean,
Mm,
there are lots of people. And my
exactly.
grandfather.
Oh
My
my God.
grandfather always told me something. Stand for something or you will fall for anything.
For anything.
If you don't have that core value, it will fall for anything. So
Mm,
understand your purpose in life. Stand for one thing. Make sure that it doesn't harm other people, and make sure that you do not mince words when you talk about that thing. Make yourself
mm.
as knowledgeable as you can in that thing that you love
Specific thing.
and try to inspire people as you go
Mm,
along so that
mm.
you're standing for that one thing and you do not fall for anything.
For anything else. That
For
is absolutely,
everything.
yeah. That is absolutely amazing. And what book? I think this is looking at that beautiful collection you have behind you there. This might also be very difficult. But what would that one book be that you could advise me or any other incoming or aspirant educationalist to have? And it doesn't necessarily have to be like an education book. Remember me and you had a conversation, and I was like, if any and every student and every person in my life right now reads this book, The Body is Not an Apology, I would be having amazing conversations, you know. So at this
Yes.
moment for you, what is that one book that you feel, you know what, Balisa, you and everybody that's watching this channel at this moment should read this book?
Oh my goodness. I love books, as you can see, and this goes,
Exactly.
I showed you where it goes. It goes all
Yeah.
the way to the ceiling. I have a library and it goes all the way to the end of the wall. And I have a ladder and I climb up and have fun. But my one book that I will ask that, that I would always try to encourage people to read from that library behind me
Mm,
is The Sword and the Scimitar or
mm,
Scimitar. Um, this book, it's a historical, uh, it's not a romantic book at all. It's actually a tragedy. And the
mm,
reason why I like it is because it shows how one person's quest for the perfect life leads him through so many different things, ups and downs in his life. And just at that moment where you think he's going to finally
Give
have it
up.
all, yeah, he didn't have it. It just shows the fickle nature of life, and that when you have the opportunity to do something, grab it when you can. Because
Mm,
at the beginning of the book, he had the chance to have grabbed that opportunity, but he didn't, and he spends the rest of his life trying to get that opportunity back. And just when you're reading it and you're thinking he's going to have this opportunity now,
nothing.
it doesn't happen, and you end up feeling the loss for him. Everything
Mm,
he did to try to, he helped people along the way, he changed lives along the way, he changed the faith of a country along the way. You know, it had something to do with Malta and the siege at Malta. Yeah, it was such a gripping novel for me. I just feel like, yeah, seize the day. The whole book, if I can summarize it into one word, it'll be
mm,
seize the day. Seize the day,
mm.
do it now. Don't wait till tomorrow. Tomorrow, life doesn't promise us tomorrow. Life
No.
doesn't give us two. I mean, you don't, sometimes they say, thunder doesn't strike in the same place twice. So when you
Yes.
have the chance, seize the
Mm,
opportunity. If it has to do with teaching abroad, if it has to do with inspiring people, don't say, oh,
mm.
I can always do it tomorrow. No, do it
Yes.
today when you have the chance. And yeah,
Mm.
you will,
I
you
mean,
will.
yeah, that's so nice. I'm definitely my collection is so the line of the books that I need to get. But I mean, we lifelong learners, so I'm actually excited. And the more I add on to my books, the more I just feel so happy about it. And what you're speaking about is so profound because my father always says that never give tomorrow's like today's problem to tomorrow because tomorrow has its own problem, right? And now
Exactly.
you find yourself having tomorrow like yesterday's problem and today's problem today because it's such a weird riddle. But yeah, never give today's problem to tomorrow because tomorrow
Tomorrow.
already has their own issues. and
Exactly.
and and thank you so much. This has been absolutely amazing and we really appreciate it. Can um can you just leave us with like beautiful, you know what, you've got this.
Like the book I've just mentioned, Seize the
Mm,
Day. It's in every language you have Seize the Day. In Latin, they
yeah.
call it Carpe Diem. In my language, it's in every language. This is why I say people are the same. As we
Yes.
travel around the world, it's in everything we do. You seize the day, enjoy today, leave it as if it's your last day on earth. And do you want to leave it with a legacy of people remembering you as someone who didn't do anything? Or do you want to
Mm.
leave a legacy of just doing that one little thing that will cause a ripple and change the world?
Everybody's lives, yes. And I mean,
Yes.
intelligent and knowledgeable people all around the world always say, a lot of research proves also that it's always the things you didn't do that you regret. Never,
Exactly.
never, never the things that you did. So if packing your bags with that 1,000 South African rand or 500 South African rand, or 200
Yes.
pounds like Janet did at some
Yes.
point, if that's what you need to do, as long as you have that ticket and you've done your research and you've worked with reputable schools and reputable agencies, you're not gonna, regret your decision. And we're not
Yes.
selling you a fairy tale that doesn't
No.
have lonely days, that doesn't have, days where you want to cry yourself to sleep because you miss
Yes.
your family. we're not
Yes.
we're not selling you that. We're just selling you an opportunity where you're going to bring yourself and learn and teach and just live. Because like I said earlier, I've been reading a lot around this idea that travel is the greatest teacher, and that is becoming so true. Not only just traveling physically as well, because like reading books, one
Yes.
smart person said reading a book is one of the only ways you can live a million lives all at
Yes.
once, and you can never
Yes.
do that in physical life. And thank you so so much, Janet. Like this has been absolutely amazing. We really appreciate you. To the chroniclers that are still here, guys, I hope you wrote your notes. I've got mine here. I hope you grasped everything, and I really hope you take what we've been told into consideration. You are enough. You've got enough confidence. You've got enough knowledge. Just show it, you know. And if you feel
Yes.
like you're missing something, learn. Do your CPDs. Please do your research. You know, the YouTube channels. We've got TikTok. Janet is on TikTok. We are on Facebook. We are on Instagram. We are on YouTube. Please, please, please. Just if you go to Janet's YouTube, Diaspora Doodles, you're gonna get everything else. You know, do that. And please, 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 just get into that airplane. Get into the airplane. We need you in these
Yes, we do.
spaces.
Yes, we
We
do.
need you in these spaces. Thank you so much, Janet. And to everybody that's still here, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please share, please engage, please tell us what else you want to hear. Please talk to us about your teaching experience if you are a teacher, both locally in your local country
Yes.
or internationally. You know, I mean, this community that we're building here, as you know, Black queens and Black kings and people that look like us, is a community that's about teaching and learning. And it's not just about, I want to sit in a camera at 12 o'clock in the morning and just talk. No, I want to sit here at 12 o'clock in the morning and talk about things that I know matter to us, that I know
Yes.
are going to make a difference in somebody who's sitting somewhere who could really, really use this knowledge. Because I know I can still use this knowledge even though I'm sitting in South Korea, you know,
Yes.
because as a lifelong learner, you can never learn enough. You
Mm.
know, there's always something for you to learn. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you,
Uh,
guys.
Thank you.